Introduction. Narcissism and egoism are two terms often used to describe individuals who exhibit self-centered behaviors, but they represent distinct psychological concepts. While both concepts revolve around self-interest and self-concern, they manifest differently in people's personalities and have varying implications for personal relationships, mental well-being, and society as a whole. This essay aims to explore the fundamental differences and similarities between narcissism and egoism, delving into their psychological underpinnings, manifestations, and consequences. Definitions and psychological underpinnings. A. Narcissism. Narcissism, named after the Greek mythological character Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection, is a personality trait characterized by an excessive preoccupation with oneself, an inflated sense of self-importance, and a strong need for admiration from others. Psychologists typically distinguish between two main types of narcissism: grandiose and vulnerable narcissism. Grandiose narcissism. Individuals with grandiose narcissism tend to exhibit an exaggerated sense of self-importance, entitlement, and a constant need for admiration. They often display manipulative and exploitative behaviors to maintain their elevated self-image. Vulnerable narcissism. Vulnerable narcissism is associated with insecurity, hypersensitivity to criticism, and a defensive reaction to perceived threats to one's self-esteem. These individuals may appear shy or reserved but harbor a deep fear of rejection and criticism. B. Egoism. Egoism, on the other hand, is a philosophical and psychological concept that pertains to the pursuit of self-interest and personal well-being as the primary moral or psychological goal. It is the idea that individuals act in their own self-interest and may prioritize their own desires, needs, and goals over the interests of others. Egoism can be examined from both psychological and philosophical perspectives. Psychological egoism. This perspective posits that all human actions are fundamentally motivated by self-interest, suggesting that people act in ways they believe will maximize their own well-being or happiness. Ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is a normative theory that asserts that individuals ought to act in their own self-interest, making self-interest the primary moral duty. Manifestations of narcissism and egoism. A. Narcissism. Behavioral traits. A. Self-promotion. Narcissists often engage in self-promotion and self-enhancement, seeking opportunities to showcase their achievements and talents. B. Exploitativeness. They may exploit others to meet their own needs and desires, often without regard for the well-being of others. C. Entitlement. Narcissists may believe they are entitled to special treatment and privileges. Emotional aspects. A. Fragile self-esteem. Grandiose narcissists may exhibit a fragile self-esteem beneath their confident facade. B. Defensive reactions. Vulnerable narcissists may react defensively to perceived threats to their self-esteem. B. Egoism. Self-interest as the motivator. A. Decision-making. Egoistic individuals are driven by self-interest when making decisions, prioritizing personal gain and well-being. B. Relationships. They may engage in relationships or actions that benefit them the most, even if it means sacrificing the interests of others. Psychological egoism versus ethical egoism. A. Psychological egoism is descriptive, suggesting that self-interest motivates all human behavior. B. Ethical egoism is prescriptive, arguing that individuals should prioritize their self-interest as a moral duty. 3. Consequences of narcissism and egoism. A. Narcissism. Interpersonal relationships. A. Difficulties in forming and maintaining relationships due to self-centeredness and exploitation of others. B. Frequent conflicts with others, as narcissists may be insensitive to the feelings and needs of those around them. Mental health. A. Vulnerable narcissists often experience higher levels of anxiety, depression, and emotional distress. B. Grandiose narcissists may have difficulty coping with failure and criticism. B. Egoism. Impact on society. A. Ethical egoism, if adopted by many individuals, can lead to a society characterized by self-interest and a lack of altruism. B. A balance between self-interest and concern for others is often seen as the foundation of a functioning and compassionate society. Personal fulfillment. A. Egoistic individuals may achieve personal success and well-being but may struggle with forming deep and meaningful relationships. B. Ethical egoists may feel morally justified in pursuing self-interest, while others may view such a stance as morally problematic. Conclusion. In conclusion, narcissism and egoism both center around self-centeredness but differ in their psychological underpinnings, manifestations, and consequences. Narcissism is primarily a personality trait marked by an inflated self-importance and a need for admiration, while egoism is a broader philosophical concept that pertains to the pursuit of self-interest as the primary moral or psychological goal. Understanding these distinctions is essential for assessing their impact on personal well-being, relationships, and society. Balancing self-interest with empathy and concern for others remains a challenge, as it requires navigating the fine line between narcissism and egoism in the pursuit of a fulfilling and morally sound life.